Before getting started with this scenario, I just wanted to say that this is the last video I'll be doing in this mini-series. I originally considered doing one about Vegeta, but I couldn't come up with many ideas for it. If there is enough interest in seeing me do that scenario, I could try to think about it again. Anyway, for Piccolo to stay evil, the change would be a semi-simple one. It would have to happen somewhere between the time after Raditz was defeated and before Vegeta and Nappa arrived on the Earth. Normally, Piccolo's original plan was to use Gohan's power to help defeat the Saiyans, and then to help take over the world. However, throughout his time of training Gohan, he began to warm up to Gohan, so he abandoned his plan of using him for his own means. So, the change is simple. Piccolo doesn't warm up to Gohan. He does still train him, but he doesn't soften up around the boy, so their unbreakable bond is never formed. Though their training still goes the same, since even in the timeline where Piccolo started to turn good, he was still harsh on Gohan. When the Saiyans eventually arrive, the early parts of the fight with them relatively goes the same. The first major change in their fight would be during the time Piccolo normally sacrifices himself to save Gohan from Nappa. Since he never got close to the young boy, he wouldn't try to intervene to save him. Krillin might try to help, but he wouldn't nearly be fast enough. So, Gohan is hit by the Baller DX, and since he is weaker than Piccolo, there is no way the young boy survives this attack. Of course, Krillin would be upset about Gohan's death, as he wouldn't know how to explain this to Goku. Like how Gohan attacked Nappa out of anger, Krillin might do the same by charging up a Kamehameha, firing it at the brutish Saiyan. Nappa would easily be able to deflect this, but when he goes to finish Krillin off, Goku would arrive and use a flying Nimbus to save him. After observing the battlefield, Goku would notice that Gohan is dead, which would rightfully anger him. He could potentially accuse Piccolo of harming him and try to attack him. Neither Goku nor Krillin would know about Piccolo choosing not to sacrifice himself for Gohan, as it isn't exactly something he would have announced out loud. So both he and Krillin would tell Goku about Nappa killing Gohan. Something to mention is that while Gohan's death would be a great source of anger for Goku, I don't think he would be strong enough to turn into a Super Saiyan. But that would also work as a scenario on its own, so if there is enough interest in my take on that idea, I might consider exploring it too. Anyway, normally Goku split the last sensor beam between Krillin and Gohan, but this time, he would split it between Piccolo and Krillin. Goku still steps up to take on Nappa, but instead of making his show of powering up, he would go straight into powering up and attacking Nappa. Their fight might be even easier for Goku, since with the rage boost from seeing Gohan die, his power level could have been slightly higher. I tend to follow the anime version for power levels, but I'm going to say it would be either over 10,000 for the anime or over 9,000 for the manga. Regardless of what his power level is, I don't see Goku sparing Nappa this time, since he killed his son. So, Goku would be the one to finish off Nappa instead of giving Vegeta the chance to kill his comrade. After Nappa is dead, Goku might tell Piccolo and Krillin to get out of there like he normally did with Gohan and Krillin. He would only be worried about Piccolo staying around since if he dies, Dragon Balls disappear. While still evil Piccolo could be too stubborn to listen to this, I think he would listen and leave with Krillin. Piccolo is intelligent, so he could see this as a way to enact his plans. If he saves his power, and if Goku wears himself out in the fight against Vegeta, he could then take out the weakened Goku. So, without Piccolo and Krillin on the battlefield, the opening parts of Goku's fight against Vegeta stay relatively the same, just with Goku doing slightly more damage since his rage boost from Gohan being dead is still adding to his power level. So, the next change isn't until Vegeta makes the artificial moon and turns into a great ape. Normally it was Gohan that suggested going back to help, but this time it could ironically be Piccolo, not because he wants to save Goku, but because he can't really rule over the Earth if there isn't an Earth. When Piccolo flies back towards the battlefield, Krillin follows him. Once they arrive, they would devise a plan to distract Vegeta and cut off his tail as per usual, but Piccolo would be the one in charge of distracting the Saiyan Prince. To distract Vegeta, Piccolo might try something he hasn't used since the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, using his giant form. Of course, it doesn't raise his power, but it at least makes him a similar size to be able to momentarily distract him. Vegeta would be caught off guard by this, at least momentarily, so they get locked into a head-to-head stalemate. This hinders Vegeta from being able to jump up, so Krillin's destructive disc would work in taking off his tail. Since Piccolo is still in his giant form, he would use this chance to start attacking Vegeta and crushing him like how he was to Goku. So, he might end up injuring some of his limbs, like his legs, to the point that he couldn't stand as well. While Piccolo was doing this, Goku gives the Spirit Bomb to Krillin. With Piccolo still standing over Vegeta, it would have been hard for Krillin to hit him. Though, thankfully for Krillin, the pain of Piccolo's form becomes too much for him, so he would revert to his normal size. This allows Krillin to throw it at Vegeta, and without him being able to move fast enough to dodge it, it would hit the Saiyan Prince. Like he did in the original, he would survive it, but he would be in an even worse state. He might try to stand and attack the heroes again, albeit shakily, but Yajirobe would still use this chance to slice his back with the sword. After Vegeta falls to the ground in pain, he uses his remote to call his spaceship. He is in a worse state, so once his spaceship arrives, he can barely move, so he is crawling towards it even slower. Krillin would borrow Yajirobe's sword, planning to kill Vegeta with it. Goku would try to stop Krillin, but with the Saiyans having caused Gohan's death in this timeline, He doesn't let Vegeta get away, so he kills him. Now, here's where things could take a dark turn. Piccolo saw how strong Goku was, especially when using his Kaioken, and he would know that at his current power level he couldn't beat him. He already tried training to get stronger to beat Goku once before, and that failed, so he falls back onto his earlier plan I briefly mentioned. Since Goku is in too weak of a state to defend himself, he goes to finish him off. Piccolo is intelligent after all, and he would have realized he couldn't catch up to Goku in power, so this is his best bet. Of course, Krillin and Yajirobe will get in his way when he tries to do this. Since they are all in a weakened state, it would be a struggle, but Piccolo would eventually come out on top. He would then go over to Goku, and with the last of his power, use his special beam cannon to kill him again. So that was originally the technique he made just to kill Goku. Piccolo would fly off after this, but he eventually collapses in some nearby wasteland. Roshi, Bulma, and Chi-Chi still arrive as usual to get the bodies of everyone, though Chi-Chi might be in a worse state here, since both her son and her husband died. Also, since this is the second time Goku died, he can't be revived with the Earth Dragon Balls. Since none of the heroes that fought Vegeta survived, no one would be there to tell Bulma and them about Namek, so Goku couldn't be revived. They might begin to gather the Earth Dragon Balls, but that would take a while for them to gather them. Piccolo would likely recover before they could gather them all, so he might end up getting in their way. After all, without anyone feasibly being able to stand up to him, he would start his plan of taking over the Earth. This would involve wiping out the humans like King Piccolo tried to do. He'd likely go after the highest power level first, which in this case would be Master Roshi. The Turtle Hermit wouldn't stand a chance against Piccolo, so he would be killed too. However, since Roshi was likely with the others who were collecting the Dragon Balls, Piccolo would also take them out. In the manga, Piccolo mentioned that he planned to reclaim his place as the king, so he would overthrow King Furry, thus becoming the ruler of Earth and reclaiming the title of Demon King. Over the years, he would slowly wipe out the rest of the humans as well. It's hard to tell how long he would draw out taking out the humans, though. In the original, he seemed more sadistic than King Piccolo. After all, he enjoyed drawing out people's suffering, while King Piccolo killed them quickly. So, he wouldn't kill them all at once, as he would let them live longer to keep himself entertained. He might create demon spawn of his own, and he would also disband any law enforcement agencies, thus plunging the world into a state of anarchy and terror. As for later sagas, some might still happen, at least to some extent. Frieza would still have gone to Namek after hearing about it over Vegeta and Nappa's scouters, though it isn't likely that the Namekians would tell him how to summon Turunga and get his wish, so Namek would be destroyed and the Namekians would be killed. The Tyrant could potentially come to Earth to try and get their Dragon Balls. Obviously, Frieza would be able to beat Piccolo in a fight. However, there's something Piccolo might be able to do to prevent this. He might be able to convince Kami to merge with him, even though he is evil. While Piccolo is in the process of wiping out the humans, he doesn't intend to destroy the planet like Frieza probably will, so this could be their only chance of being able to stop the Tyrant. Kami might agree to this, albeit very reluctantly. Power-wise, while he would be weaker than what he was when they initially did this, it is still a massive power boost. He might be able to defeat Frieza, since the power boost from before brought him to the level of being able to fight in perfect cell. Though his power wouldn't be that high, Piccolo also isn't dumb enough to just stand around and let Frieza try to transform. At most, Frieza might get away with transforming into his second form, but Piccolo wouldn't let him do it again. So, the Tyrant would be wiped out before he could reach his third form. With the Tyrant killed, Piccolo would go back to ruling over the Earth and hunting down people to fight. When not hunting people down, he could potentially train just to pass the time. He might eventually face other threats, such as King Cold coming to Earth to avenge his son. Depending how strong Piccolo would have gotten through his training, and since he wouldn't risk giving King Cold a chance to transform, he might finish him early on. As a side note, this would essentially be this timeline's version of the future timeline, since there never would have been time travel to branch it off to a different timeline. Later, assuming the androids still appear, but with the goal of taking Piccolo out, they could potentially be strong enough to catch him off guard and take him out. He would likely be as strong as he was normally around this time after fusing with Kami, or potentially even stronger, since what he mostly does is train. Since this is the future timeline, the androids he was facing would be 17 and 18. If he does somehow manage to defeat the androids, the next threat would be Babidi and Dabura. They wouldn't be able to get enough power from Piccolo to awaken Buu, but since he's still evil, he might be put under Babidi's control. However, like Vegeta was when he became Majin, he would likely have enough free will left to make his own choices. So, ironically, he might use the added power from Babidi's manipulation to be able to kill Dabura. He would then kill Babidi as well, before going back to ruling over the Earth. Again, since this is the future timeline, there isn't an equivalent to Dragon Ball Super. So, this is essentially the end of the timeline, with a Demon King Piccolo ruling over the Earth.